Hello, mysterious person behind the screen, and welcome back to another audio commentary with me and Isaac.
Statistically speaking, flying is the safest way to travel.
Yes, it is, and that good advice signals that we are doing Superman the movie, the expanded edition, so the 2000 special edition, extended version, whatever you want to call it, of the grandfather of superhero films, really, the godfather of superhero films. So, without further ado,
If you'd like to sync this up with the Blu-ray copy of the expanded edition of Superman the movie, put the film to the start and press play in three, two, one, go.
so yeah, this has been a while since I've watched the expanded edition. Usually I just
I
go.
always go to the expanded edition. It's my de facto go-to one, I think.
It's the one I grew up with because it was the only one
Yeah.
I had on DVD. And then it was my de facto for years. But then they bought the 4K out, and sadly, it didn't have that. Only has the theatrical. So I've sort
Ah,
of become
okay.
used to the theatrical now. So this is going to be fun because it's been a while since I've watched the expanded edition. Um, and of course, there's
hmm
there's the 3 hour TV cut as well, which is cool as a novelty. But I watched it once, and I probably wouldn't watch it again because it is just full of scenes that were cut for a reason.
Yeah, Richard Donner, I don't think, was a fan of the 3 hour cut. He said, I made those cuts for a reason.
Yeah, he didn't like that they released it either on Blu-ray. I remember when it came out, he was like, "Well, it's just
Mm.
it shouldn't be released." And but I think it's cool that they dug it out and presented
Well, I
those
know there's
scenes.
expanded TV cuts of Superman 2 and 3, isn't there?
Yeah, and I really want to see them released. It's I guess it's a thing where the footage doesn't exist anymore. I don't know, but yeah, Superman 2 especially has got some really cool stuff that has never seen the light of day in good quality. So it'd be cool
hmm
to see that released. Superman 3, I think, has just got a bit of extra fluff that doesn't really help anything. But
So this time last year, I was pretty lucky to see Superman the movie on the big screen for its 45th anniversary,
oh,
which was a
nice!
really cool experience. Yeah,
Oh, very cool.
yeah,
45 years old now. This is mad.
yeah. I mean, it's pretty much what Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is to animation. This is the one that started it all.
That's a great description, actually. Yeah, I hadn't
Yeah.
thought of it like that. Yeah, it's a really good description of this. I mean, it's and
I
it's
mean,
true.
to be honest, whenever I see trailers for Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, whenever it's reissued, it's always that tagline, the one that started it all.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, that tagline is so like the one that started it all. I've seen that used on so many film
hmm
Blu-rays and stuff. Like the Terminator uses it, Alien uses it. Any kind of first film in a franchise, it's always the one that started it all.
hmm
But yeah, I mean, I don't know how much of this is just marketing speak, but I know that Kevin Feige apparently makes every new director who signs on to the MCU watch this before
That
they,
does
they
not
make the
surprise
film.
me.
Wouldn't surprise me. I don't know how much of that is just, marketing
I
speak,
know
but
Christopher Nolan visited the Fortress of Solitude set as a kid.
he did, yeah, because one of the Dark Knight Blu-ray sets has a big in conversation with him and Richard Donner, which is
hmm
very cool. So yeah, he's a big fan of this. And to be honest, the amount of big comic book directors that have cited this as an influence is
hmm
is pretty exceptional. Um, it speaks for itself. And to be honest, I'm saddened that it a lot of the time doesn't get the appreciation from people today, as in the people who didn't grow up with it rather. I see
Yeah,
a lot
that's
of people
true.
dismissing it.
I think other films do overshadow it, but
Yeah,
like films like Batman, Spider-Man, the MCU, they would not exist without this.
100%. And it's a shame. I know people who are massively into superhero films and love the genre, but have never bothered to watch this because they just think, oh, it's too old and the effects won't have dated. And it's such a shame because it is still. I mean, it's still the definitive version of Superman on screen. I don't think anything has come close to this since. Um,
Well, we shall. Well, as we record this, they are filming the upcoming Superman film,
they are,
directed by
yes.
James Gunn.
Yeah. And I'm so excited for that. I think that is, James Gunn's film. I rewatched Guardians 3 the other night, and he just gets it, and I just think if anyone can make a great Superman film, it's him.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
And I'm so hopeful for it. Just because we've not had a Superman film, a solo Superman film in 11 years. It'll be 12 years by the time by the time the new one comes out. And that is insane to me that, the definitive superhero, the most iconic superhero of them all, hasn't had a solo film in that long. It's mad. It's mental.
I mean, I find it funny how there was a 19-year gap between Superman 4 and Superman Returns.
Yeah, that's true. And even that, that it wasn't intended to, was it? Because of course, Superman Unbound or whatever it was meant to be called with Nicolas Cage was so close to happening, and it was only kind of last minute that got canned. But
well, yeah, didn't they resurrect Christopher Reeve's Superman for The Flash?
Yes, and all they had him do was stare at a big sky portal and have no emotion in his face whatsoever.
Well, yeah, I know. I've not seen The Flash because, I mean, what hasn't the leading star done at that point? What haven't they done?
Yeah. So I watched The Flash in the cinema, and then it's Easter as we're recording this, and my parents wanted to watch it, so I watched it again with them last night, actually. And the first half of that is fine. It's okay. But as soon as Michael Keaton's Batman comes into it, the whole thing falls apart, because it does just become fan service and just it's kind of everything wrong with superhero films today.
I mean the Batman Superman film I want to see would have been Michael Keaton versus Christopher Reeve.
It would have been great. It would have been so good. Well, speaking of Christopher Reeve, I'm assuming it's coming out this year. But I don't know if you've heard about that documentary that's premiered at some festivals about his life, which I'm really looking forward to seeing. I hope it comes out this year in a wide release.
Yeah, I've not. That's the first time I've heard of it.
Yeah. It got a few festival showings, and then James Gunn has been talking about it pretty heavily and saying how good it is. So hopefully that comes out this year, because I would really like to see it. And it was all been done with his family and stuff. And during the publicity for it, the family were like, "Yeah, we had nothing to do with that cameo in The Flash, and we weren't told about it, and we weren't consulted," which says it all. So in these Krypton scenes, spot William Russell as one of the Kryptonians.
Oh, William Russell.
Yeah,
I didn't know William Russell was in this.
Yeah, he's in it. He's I think in this version and the theatrical version, he's in the background. I know in the TV cut he gets a few close-ups, but he is there if you look hard enough for him. He's one of the council members. So yeah.
I mean, I also heard William Russell was in the original cut of A Clockwork Orange, where he played a librarian who gets attacked. But
oh, really?
Yeah, given that Kubrick had all the deleted scenes of that film destroyed, I don't know if it's true or not.
Yeah, well, Kubrick hates deleted scenes, doesn't he? He doesn't like, well, he didn't like showing deleted scenes of his film, so I think it was in his will or something when he died. Any footage that got cut from his films had to be destroyed. With the exception of The Shining, because that was a different circumstance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think
the ironic thing about the Superman films is that the actors who've played the heroes are no longer with us, like Christopher Reeve and Margot Kidder.
Yeah.
And Marlon Brando as well. But the actors who play the villains, like Gene Hackman, Terrence Stamp, Jack O'Halloran, Sarah Douglas, they're still alive.
That's a good point, yeah.
And I can remember someone adding to that list, it's a shame how the heroes, they included a picture of Richard Donner and are dead, but the villains, including a picture of the Soul Kind, are still alive.
Oh, are the Soul Kind still around? I didn't know that.
Well, Ilya Stolkind is still around. I
Oh,
know
okay.
Alexander isn't. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes sense.
I think Pierce Spengler is still alive as well. I could be wrong.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. They don't really. They're kind of recluses, aren't they? They don't really speak, about it
Yeah.
much these days. They've not been all the crew involved with these films, obviously because they're getting on now. It's 40+ years since these films. Yeah, you don't really hear them speaking about them anymore, which is a shame. I think Jack O'Halloran follows me on Twitter. I think.
Wow,
I
that's
think
cool.
I seem to remember like getting a notification once years ago and just thinking, "Holy shit, it's non." But yeah,
I mean, I'll say this: when the Sorkinds plan to make two Superman films, I'm glad they were a bit more honest this time around because of
yes.
the controversy that happened with the Musketeer films.
Oh yeah, there was a whole thing around that, wasn't there?
Yeah, they it was originally just going to be one big 3.5 hour movie, but then they decided to split it in two,
Yeah.
and the cast and crew were like, "Hang on, you only paid us for one film. Where's our paycheck for the second one then?"
Oh yeah, I have. Yes, I have. I have heard of that before. Yeah. Oh,
And apparently, what they did get for the second film was barely anything.
that does not surprise me. I mean, the Soulkinds
Yeah.
were fascinating people, but I
hmm
imagine like the business side of it, working with them in a business sense was probably hell.
Yeah, because I think Richard Donner said when they came back to do Superman 2 and complete it, I think he said either Pierce Spengler goes or I do. That was the
Yeah,
ultimatum.
that was a yeah,
Or Pierce Spengler stays and he doesn't interfere.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Which is yeah. I mean, the thing about the Soulkinds is that say what you will about them, but they never they didn't make films on the cheap. That is one thing you can't say because I watched
hmm
I watched
Yeah.
Supergirl for the first time recently, having never seen it, and it's an awful film. But the special
Of
effects
course.
and the production of it is, just as good as the first three Superman films. Like it still looks great, and they don't make films on the cheap. That's for sure. Even Santa Claus the movie is basically Superman the movie remade, but with
Oh,
Santa.
oh hell yeah, of course it is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
John Lithgow's character is practically Lex
He
Luthor.
really is. And it's like right down to having like a good chunk of it set in a snowy landscape, and it's like quite a long film, and it's this big origin story. Like they did just
Mhm.
remake this, but with Santa, which I find so funny.
Yeah.
This is like these early Krypton scenes are a big showcase of Jeffrey Unsworth and his photography
Mhm.
because it's such a unique look of having the suits be made out of material that is so blown out on camera and so bloomy. Um, it sticks in your mind, this stuff. Having those uniforms be
Mhm.
so like bright and I can't really think of anything else that looks like this.
Mhm. I think Marlon Brando filmed this in just over a week and got what? Um, millions of dollars for it.
Yeah, millions of dollars, top billing on the film. It's Superman the movie starring Marlon Brando and Gene Hackman with Christopher Reeve. Christopher Reeve is
Then
like
again, it
third billing.
happened years later with Batman. Jack Nicholson got top
It
billing over
really
Michael
did, yeah.
Keaton.
It's mental, isn't it? Um, yeah. All there's quite a big chunk been added here, isn't there, in this expanded edition?
hmm
Um, but yeah, I mean Marlon Brando, I great actor, obviously, but he is one of the most notorious actors who, when they didn't care about something, they really fucking phoned it in, and
Oh yeah.
that is so evident here. Like he's, for me, he will always be the definitive Jor-El, right? But he
hmm
clearly does not give a shit about this. Like, and Christopher Reeve said so. I don't know that it does the rounds sometimes on the internet, but there's an interview with him from the late 70s on a talk show promoting this, And the interviewer was like, so what was it like working with Marlon Brando? And Christopher Reeve is just like dead honest. He's just like, well, I'm not going to sit here and say he was this legendary figure, because he took the $2 million, ran away, and didn't really care about it. And he's just like,
and
brutally honest.
He was promised a percentage of the film's box office gross, but apparently didn't receive it and sued the Salkinds for $50 million. Hence why he's not in the theatrical cut of Superman 2.
Yeah. Which, I mean, that's a whole it's a miracle, this film, given that the production behind it, that it started off made filmed simultaneously as the sequel, and then that got changed halfway through. It's a miracle that this film holds together as well as it does.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it is, it's a brilliantly constructed film, and the fact that it is a brilliantly constructed film is a minor miracle, given all the shit that happened behind the scenes, which we'll talk more about next time. Because but I don't know. I think it is a shame that people write this one off, who've never seen it, because I think it is kind of mandatory viewing for somebody who likes the superhero genre, just to get an idea of the context and how much this influence. And it's a shame that people do look at the special effects, and just write it off, because the effects have dated brilliantly. They are 70s effects, but it's a shame that they just, people take one look at them and just write the whole thing off.
I mean, they're dated, but they're not Superman 4. Let's just say that.
Oh yeah, exactly, and a lot of them still look great, and it's even if they didn't, Christopher Reeve is the best special effect in this film.
It's so funny. Ilya Salkind will always say, "I had nothing to do with Superman 4." You can't blame me for that.
Yes, they're very quick to distance themselves from that one, which I don't blame them. But I think like the spinning ring effect, I think is a really cool effect. I don't know how they did that. Is it literally just like a balancing thing on wires? I don't know. But even just stuff like that, I'm like, that's a really cool, visual.
Plus, one thing I like about Krypton's depiction is that whatever media you watch it in, it's always very different. Like here, it's kind of like an ice planet. In the animated series, it's basically a futuristic city, and in Man of Steel, it's kind of like a mix of city, but also organic life and jungle life as well. I think
Krypton doesn't really have a definitive portrayal, which is cool, like you say. I mean, there was that Krypton TV series that lasted a couple of seasons, wasn't there? But I never watched it. I don't know how that went. But
also, here's a fun fact: Marlon Brando is reading the lines.
Yes, he is.
I think from the baby's nappy. I think.
Yep. Also, look out for his very 70s Earth wristwatch that he's wearing. But I know, to say he didn't care, and he clearly doesn't. He's clearly phoning it in. The monologue is brilliant, and this.
I mean, no one bothered to tell him he was pronouncing Krypton wrong, because he says it as Krypton.
Yeah, Krypton. The planet Krypton. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's a testament to this monologue and his. I'd say less of his performance and more his aura as Jor-El. It's a testament to that in Superman Returns, so much of that film is kind of reliant on the reuse of footage from him and everything.
That's funny because I think last year, the Superman film series got their big Steelbook 4K release, which included the sequels as well. Mm-hmm. Superman Returns was not included.
It was not, and I can only
reckon
speculate.
It's down to, basically Bryan Singer and Kevin Spacey.
Yeah, It's that. And it's a shame because the you know, for years, and I agree that people have said the Blu-ray of Superman Returns, it was a very early Blu-ray, and it doesn't look great. Like, the color is really muted, and it's not a great disc. So it's a shame that hasn't been spiffed up and refreshed and everything.
It's weird how Superman Returns ignores 3 and 4, but having watched all of them, I don't think there's anything in 3 and 4 that I don't think Returns blatantly contradicts anything in Superman 3 and 4.
Oh,
apart
God,
from
no.
when Superman 3 they mention his mum died. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And Superman Returns, he's just back.
Yeah, that's true. And then yeah, that is the only thing that contradicts it. Yeah, that's true. I mean, to be honest, Superman Returns contradicts itself because it has a lot of implication. I mean, again, it's more of a Superman 2 topic, but it has a lot of things where it's like, that doesn't make sense. You know, if you're following either cut of Superman 2, because obviously there are differences, but it contradicts both cuts because there's stuff like Lex. Oh, sorry, no, it's saying it's like based on the Richard Donner cut, isn't it? That's what people say who've worked on the film.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that doesn't make sense because at the end of the Donner cut, he reverses time, and yet it's said in the film that Lex has been to the fortress before, which wouldn't have happened had he reversed time.
Yeah, that wouldn't have happened if he reversed time at the end of the second film.
Exactly, and there's stuff like Lois being like Lois having the kids, even though in the Donner cut he would have reversed the fact that they slept together, which doesn't make a lot of sense. And it's just this whole thing where it's like, huh. Plus, even in if you're following the theatrical cut, he wiped his mind. He wiped her mind. Who does she think she slept with to get pregnant then? Like, who does she think the father is to that child?
Either way, nobody wins.
Exactly. And
Superman Returns.
Exactly. So I just choose to watch that film as just like its own universe continuity. And I know that like the Arrowverse stuff, when they brought back Brandon Routh, they said, oh no, he's definitely meant to be Christopher Reeve's Superman, because they have he like in when they brought him back, he refers to the events of Superman 3 and 4, like he says, oh, I fought myself once in a junkyard, and it's like, okay, that it's meant to be, but yeah, I just see it as a different thing personally.
Yeah, Superman Returns, for me, it's just kind of boring and clumsy.
Yeah, it's like a lot of Superman films, it's like halfway there, but just like the best parts of that film are when he goes up to the sun to recharge his powers, and the music swells and stuff, and he's, you know, the monologue to his son at the end is really cool, and the plane you know, rescue is great. There's great stuff in the film. It's very dull and has a massive identity crisis, because it's like, is this Superman 5? Is it a reboot?
Yeah.
Is it a remake?
Is it Superman 2.5?
Is it Superman 2.5? It just has a massive like identity crisis with it, because it wants to have its cake and eat it too. It wants to be like, yes, we're picking up where Superman 2 left off, except now it's 2006 and everyone's got modern technology. But ignore that, and it's just a bit like, just pick a lane. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, because the opening text is just laughable.
Yeah, it really is.
The first 2 lines tell us stuff we already know about Superman, and the last line says, oh, he disappeared.
He buggered off.
Yeah.
He grew up to be the world's greatest protector, Superman. Then he pissed off into space for 5 years.
Yeah, it'd be like saying Bruce Wayne became Batman, and then...
Yeah.
It'd be like if you went from, say, Batman Begins to The Dark Knight Rises, and The Dark Knight Rises opened with a text saying, Bruce Wayne's parents were killed when he was 8. He then became known as the crime fighter Batman. But having found relatives of his, he disappeared for 8 years. Fill in the gaps yourself.
Yeah, that's literally it. It's such a shame, because I think Brandon Routh was really great, and I would have liked to have seen a sequel to it that gave him a chance to be more emotive and be a bit more happy and be a bit less mopey. And I think a sequel to Returns could have been really great, because they could have really solidified what they were doing, but sadly it just never happened. It's a big shame. I hope it joins the rest, in 4K one day. But I'm not holding my breath because Warner Brothers doesn't really care about Superman either. This is the thing I've noticed, because that box set that you spoke about was riddled with errors, and
I heard about it.
And it was missing extras. It ported most things over. Like, overall, it was a good set, but it just, compared to like the love that Batman got when those films got refreshed and remastered, it's just, they're constantly pumping out new editions of those films, but Superman just doesn't get the same love, and I'm hoping the new film's going to change that.
I'm going to say this. I think the best Superman film we've had of the 21st century is Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, that's probably the tone of a Superman movie that you probably should aim for a modern audience, I think.
Well, the Captain America films are the ones I always point to when people are like, oh, but Superman's too, he can't work in the modern day. I'm always just like, well, we've had 3 Captain America films that, audiences were fine with those. Why should Superman be any different?
Yep.
Thankfully, in recent years, because in the sort of mid-2010s, everything just went down the evil Superman has to be dark and gritty and a badass to be good. Thankfully, in recent years, they kind of changed that a bit, because we've had stuff like Superman and Lois, which is a really, really great show, and that is, for me, the best Superman thing in years is that show.
Wow.
And then we've had like the animated thing that came out last year, My Adventures with Superman, I think it was called, which I've not seen it, but apparently it was really good. So yeah, we've been getting some good stuff, and like I say, James Gunn posted this whole like mood board on his Instagram of all these different things that he's taking influence from, and it was like the Richard Donner films, the animated series,
definitely.
So I really cannot wait for that film, and I hope it's good.
Yeah, now infant Clark Kent here, he's later that kid in Superman 3.
Yes.
Who sees Superman coming out of the photo booth.
Yes, yeah, which is that is the one thing I do love about these films. They're almost like a community, and they have actors popping up as different characters in each one, and they're very similar to the Bond films, obviously, because they were shot in the UK. A lot of the same crew worked on these as worked on the Bond films. So they remind me of the Bond films in that they are like a very communal thing. The first 3 anyway. The 4th one, well,
no. Well, Roger Moore said during the making of this film, when Christopher Reeve was, say, on a break in the canteen, and in his Superman costume, he got all the attention in the world.
Yeah.
But when he was coming off set as Clark Kent and wearing his glasses, apparently no one recognised him, and no one realised he was playing Superman as well.
I mean, that says it all, doesn't it?
Yeah, no one batted an eyelid.
Yeah. I know it's like, you're almost sounding like a broken record when you say this, but there really is no other Superman like Christopher Reeve, and I would be very surprised. Like, again, Tyler Hoechlin in Superman and Lois is probably the best Superman since Christopher Reeve, but even then, he doesn't come close to Chris Reeve. Like, it is the perfect Superman. It's literally like Superman is real. Christopher Reeve's performance, it's incredible, and I just he's big shoes to fill. And it is still such a shame that he never got, obviously because of his accident. It's a shame that he didn't get that the 5th film that they were talking about making in the 90s. And
we've got Jeff Easter's Teenage Superman, but voice dubbed over by Christopher Reeve.
Voice dubbed over by Chris Reeve, yep. Poor guy.
But yeah, I know for the 3-hour version, there's more scenes with Jeff East, but his voice has been left undubbed.
Yes, and it's noticeable, but in all honesty, I don't think they really need to dub his voice over because he doesn't sound like massively different to Christopher Reeve anyway.
Yeah.
I think Jeff East is Jeff East still about? I think he does
I think
conventions
so,
and stuff.
yeah.
Yeah,
I think he's still around, Jeff East, yeah.
it's great as well because a lot of like Superman cast members make cameos in other Superman things quite frequently.
Hmm.
Like, well, here actually, in the expanded edition, you see Lois Lane's parents, and they're played by Noel Neal, and I forget the other guy's name, but I believe she was Lois in the George Reeves series.
Oh, nice.
And I think her dad, and I could be completely wrong about this, I think her dad is the guy who played Jimmy Olsen in the George Reeves series. But
Cool.
I could be completely wrong about that. I know that they're somebody anyway. They're definitely a cameo of some sort. But
Well, Annette O'Toole, who played Lana Lang in Superman 3, played Martha Kent in Smallville, didn't she?
she did, yeah. And Helen Slater, who played Supergirl, plays Kara's mum in the Supergirl TV show. So
Oh,
it all
cool.
kind of. That's what I do like about the Superman franchise is everyone's very proud of it and will come back in subsequent things. And
Well, Mark McClure was in Supergirl, wasn't he?
yes, he was, yeah, and he was in Zack Snyder's Justice League. As
Oh,
as the
nice.
cop who Lois brings the coffee to every day. Um,
Oh, I didn't realise that. That was
yeah,
Mark McClure.
well, Justice League generally as well, not just the Snyder Cut, but he's more prominent in the Snyder Cut. So that's cool as well.
Well, you don't need Jimmy Olsen in Superman anymore. Just have him get shot in
Just
the
get
head in Africa.
shoot him in the head, yeah. Oh God. Well, have you seen the that Miss Tessmacher, who was creative for this film, is in Superman, the new one as well, James Gunn's version,
Yeah, and Otis apparently as
and
well.
Otis, yeah, which is so cool. And everything, the casting for
I
that
mean, one
film
thing I
seems
am
great.
getting a bit annoyed at with latest Superman films is that they've only seemed to go for Lex Luthor or General Zod, and I'm like,
Yeah.
Superman's got way more villains than that.
Oh, he's got tons. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like you could do so much stuff with them. I think, yeah, I think it is just the safest option. Really, it's a shame. I mean, to be honest, I'm even getting a bit fatigued with Brainiac in stuff because he's in a lot of like video games and cartoons these days. But give like Metallo some love or something.
Yeah, Metallo was in the animated series voiced by Malcolm McDowell,
Yeah,
and
he's
that's
really good.
pretty awesome.
The story he has across that series as well, because he's one of the few villains that has like a long form story over that series, and each time he appears, the story kind of continues, and it's really good
Yeah,
stuff.
because he's given a metal body to prolong his life because he's dying of an illness. But it turns out Lex Luthor gave him that illness in the first place just so he
Yeah,
could make him into a weapon to take down Superman. Like, that is
it's
diabolical.
really dark. I'm looking forward to
Yeah.
seeing what Nicholas Hoult does with Lex Luthor. Um, I think he could be pretty cool.
Yeah,
Certainly,
as long as he's not Jesse Eisenberg.
yeah, exactly.
I'll say this about Eisenberg's Lex Luthor. His best scene is in the Zack Snyder Justice League where he says, where instead of saying, why don't we have a league of our own? He says, if you want Batman's identity, here it is.
Yeah, he's really good in that bit actually. Like it's a shame. It's a shame that he didn't. I mean, this is like a lot of things with the DCEU. It's a shame that things didn't happen. I'm looking forward to one day getting like some big documentary about that whole thing because you know
Oh, yeah.
it ended on such a whimper as well with Aquaman 2. Well, yeah, it's the last DCEU film ever, and it just ends on such a whimper. It's
Hmm.
it's it's fascinating, really, that they spent how long was it? 10 years, 11 years,
Roughly that time, yeah, 10 years.
trying and failing over and over and over again.
Hmm.
It's insane, really. It really is.
where DC is now, it's like that scene in The Simpsons where everyone abandons Homer's town. Guess it's just us and the tumbleweed. But
Yeah.
then the tumbleweed goes over the wall as well. Oh,
Basically. I'm very much looking forward to seeing... I hope James Gunn brings it back and, you know... Because he's got a lot of plans for it. And I'm really hoping he gets to actually do those plans. Because the amount of times with DC we've heard... This is the slate. We're doing this film, this film, this film. And then fast forward 5 years later. Oh, they all got cancelled.
reshoot, cancellation.
Yeah.
I mean, I rag on it a lot, but Batman v Superman, that's the snowball that started the avalanche to where we are now.
Yeah, all of the... I maintain this. All of the issues with the DCEU can be traced back to the decision to rush into Batman v Superman and to rush into the Justice League. They can all be traced... Because Man of Steel, love it or hate it, is a... You know, there's foundations there to build upon. And
oh, definitely, yeah.
If they had just took their time, I wonder what we could be seeing now. You know, it makes me sad because I don't love Man of Steel. I think it's fine, but every time I see that ending where she's like, "Welcome to the planet," and he smiles and everything, it just makes me so sad because all of that potential, you know, it just squandered for the sake of trying to catch up to the other team.
I mean, here we only just met Jonathan Kent, but his death scene is like superbly done because
It really is, yeah.
Yeah, where Clark says all those powers and I couldn't save him, that's probably the equivalent of the with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah, 100%.
Seeing you get in any superhero film.
And you know, this is the thing. This film is very sincere, and I've said it before, but I will always prefer a sincere, if a bit cheesy, superhero film than one that is ashamed of being a superhero film.
Oh yeah,
because Superman is one of the most, ironically, he's one of the most human of all the superheroes.
Oh yeah,
because he's so, he's literally got the weight of the world on his shoulders, and that is so compelling to me. And all of this stuff in like the wheat fields of Kansas and all of this stuff is just, that's the stuff I love, when he's just like being and existing and just being one with the world and just at peace, and it's great.
I mean, it's funny how we compare Superman to Jesus, but the creators of Superman were Jewish. But obviously, there's I mean, Superman is literally Moses with aliens.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, he is Moses with aliens, and that's kind of why I think, the Jesus allegory that they tried to do with the Snyder films didn't really work.
Well, Man of Steel reinterprets, I'd say, Superman as a first contact story, and I think both are fine on its own. Yeah.
Yeah, Man of Steel's got a lot of stuff going for it, but also there's just as much stuff holding it back. Like when it descends into just grey CGI destruction, I'm just over it. But when it's like, I love Hans Zimmer's, score and everything, and when he's just like learning to fly and just, that's all great. But
there's one film that I'm surprised the people making it didn't just say, screw it, let's just make it a Superman movie, and that's Disney's Hercules.
Yeah.
It's the same film.
Essentially, yeah. I mean,
take this moment here where Clark's about to walk away from home and, find the Fortress of Solitude. I half expect him to start singing Go the Distance.
That's true, actually, yeah. So that scene there with Martha looking out the window, that was added for the expanded edition. And something I can never unnotice is the product placement of the Cheerios box, because she takes it out of the cupboard and the light's really harsh on it, really making sure you can see the Cheerios logo. She puts it down on the table, facing directly towards the camera, and then it cuts outside, and the box has somehow turned around, moved right up close to the window, so you can definitely see the Cheerios box. It's something that Harry Hill would make fun of on TV Burp, like the Cheerios box. He wants to be an actor. But this shot here, like with just them surrounded by the fields of wheat and it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. And again, it's like that human stuff that I just love about the character, and it's the stuff I feel like we've been missing for so long.
Mm-hmm.
Again, the great thing about Superman and Lois as a show is it's the whole concept of it is him and Lois move back to Smallville to raise their kids, and it's about him being a dad, and that's the whole kind of crux of that show, and that's kind of why I love it so much, because that's the kind of perfect thing where it's like, this is a new interpretation of Superman, and it's a different interpretation, different take, but it still keeps the core of the character, and it's not changing the character, it's just putting him in a new situation. And that's how you do it. You know, that's how you make him more relevant. You don't have to change the character at all. Just put him in new situations, and that's how he'll endure. But
because Superman eventually has a son called Jonathan Kent, am I right?
Yeah, Jonathan.
Or John Kent?
Jonathan, yes, yeah. Jonathan Kent, who then becomes, in the comics, Superman himself. But yeah, that shot of just them, you know, silhouetted against the sky with the wheat and everything, it's so good.
Yeah. I know Richard Donner said, had I not had my beef with the Soul Kinds, I would have done a Superman 3, I would have done a Superman 4, I would have stayed as long as I wanted to.
Yeah, it's one of those, like, great what-ifs, isn't it? I would have been so... I mean, what didn't the Cannon Group approach him to do Superman 4?
I think so, but maybe by that time he maybe lost interest.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was. It was something... Because I don't think he was open to the idea. It was either a scheduling thing or something to do with the script. It was something that stopped him from doing it, but he was like considering it because the Salkinds weren't involved. And I mean, the original, very early on, the director for Superman 4 was going to be Wes Craven, which would have been...
Wow.
But him and Christopher Reeve apparently just didn't get on and fell out. So he was off. But I can't imagine a Wes Craven Superman film.
Well, I know, had Superman 4 been a success, wouldn't it have led to, like, a Spider-Man film from Cannon?
Yeah, to Cannon's Spider-Man film, there are posters that exist of... I can't remember what the guy's name is, but it's a stuntman, and it's him in the suit, and there's photos of him that we used on like comic covers of him unmasked and things like that. So it got as far as they were producing publicity for it. But the thing is with Cannon, they were like making promises and promises and, you know, producing publicity for films that they could never afford to make. Like... I mean, you know, it's one of the biggest questions in Hollywood is like, what would have happened if Superman 4 had been a big smash hit? What would have happened? You know, would it have continued? What would...
From what I understand about Superman 4 is that everyone was so embarrassed by it, no one attended the premiere. Like, none of the cast and crew
I think
went to the premiere.
Am I imagining this, or did... No, I can't... Did Princess Diana go to Superman's 4 you know?
I have heard that, yeah.
I think there are photos.
I think Prince Charles was there as well.
I think it was a big royal premiere. Yes, I've just googled it. Yeah, in 1987, Princess Diana attended the Superman 4 premiere. There's oh my god, I've just found a photo of Mark Pillow as Nuclear Man in costume talking to Princess Diana This is incredible.
I think he was the only person who showed up.
No, like in this photo, so there's Margot Kidder, and they've got
Oh wow.
what's her name? The woman who played Lacey, Mariel Hemingway. So they're all there, and they're like
Wow.
they're just dressed, in smarts. They're in dresses. It's a premiere, and then next to them is Mark Pillow dressed in his full Nuclear Man outfit. This is so funny. God, a royal premiere for Superman 4.
Yeah.
That's mental. That's the equivalent of
Funny enough, Mark Pillow was not the first
no, yeah,
nuclear man.
no. You had the guy from Alien 3. What's his name? Clive
Clive
Mantle.
Mantle.
Yes, Clive Mantle.
I know him for he was in 3 episodes of the first season of Game of Thrones,
Oh,
and
really?
yeah, he made such an impact because he has an awesome speech, and at the end he shouts, "The King of the North!"
Oh, nice. Oh, that's nice because
Yeah,
for a while he didn't have much luck because he got like heavily. Well, he got completely cut out of Superman 4. His role was
yeah.
heavily reduced in Alien 3 once that got cut down. He didn't have much luck for a while. It's
hmm
such a shame. I'd love to because obviously we've got the footage of him as Nuclear Man in low quality, but I would have loved to have. I mean, I always say this,
That
but I'd love to
thing,
see Superman 4's extended version.
yeah. Well, yeah. As much as we'd love to, like Richard Donner's version of Superman 2, I just don't think it'll ever happen because,
Mm,
well, it's considered one of the worst movies ever made.
really is.
Then again,
It's a
another
broken
film
film.
that's considered one of the worst, called Caligula, has received a new 3 hour cut, which
Mm.
I'd really love to see.
Yeah, it's
Which I know it premiered at Cannes Film Festival last year, and they're saying they're going to put it out in cinemas like this year, but I've
oh
not heard any
nice.
news or anything. And give it a physical media release as well.
Well, these things kind of sneak up on you, don't they? Because I remember like a few years ago, randomly out of nowhere, Sylvester Stallone was just like, "I've made a director's cut of Rocky 4," and everyone was just like, "Was anyone asking for a director's cut of Rocky 4?"
Yeah.
But it was like a big project, and it was just like they announced it last minute, and that was it. It was
hmm
just like what? So these things just you can never predict them.
I mean, what next? Guillermo del Toro will say, "Here's my version of The Hobbit in animation," because I know
Oh, that'd be so good.
he has said I'm sticking to animations for a while now.
Oh, that would be brilliant. An animated Hobbit
Yeah, he could
film.
finally have the chance to release his version of The Hobbit.
Yeah. And if it's like his version of Pinocchio, like that style, oh, that'd be incredible. Like
hmm
make it 2.5 hour film. Um,
Yeah.
oh wow, that'd be great. That'd do like because I think Net has he signed a deal with Netflix? Is that because I know Pinocchio was on Netflix? That'd be
Something like that, yeah.
that'd be a massive money maker for Netflix. God, it's like the '80s Doctor Who title sequence.
A little bit, yeah. hmm
But it's so this is how many things have followed this formula now. So we are 48 minutes into the film, uh, and we're only now
hmm
seeing Superman become Superman.
Yeah.
How many things have followed that formula of like really waiting a while to tell the story of the person before the superhero. Like Batman Begins does
hmm
it. Although I will say every time I watch it, this is the bit that I am sometimes tempted to fast forward through because this bit just goes on with the trippy visuals of space.
Yeah, because I'll say this, this is good, but I kind of prefer what Man of Steel did with him testing his first flight and struggling to
Yeah,
control it. That's really cool, I
yeah, I
think.
love that bit in Man of Steel. It's one of the few times that Henry Cavill Superman like really smiled and laughed, and
Oh yeah.
I treasure that bit.
Right, yeah, because what's what's the thing that Superman says to Lois when she asks, "Who are you?" and he just says, "I'm a friend." That's all you need for Superman.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean,
The
that's
DCEU Superman. I'm taking you in without breaking you,
I
which is more
know.
than you deserve. Like, yeah, that's a hero I want to root for.
Nobody stays good in this world. Yes, said Superman. Superman, the always
That's more of a
optimistic.
Batman line than anything.
It really is, and I know what people are going to say. Well, it's deconstructing Superman. You just don't like seeing your heroes deconstructed, and I'm like, well, no. Uh, you're deconstructing a Superman that you've not bothered to set up. That's what I always say.
Hmm.
Um, and I just think there's a place for like deconstructions of those characters for sure.
Yeah.
However, it was kind of nuts that Warner Brothers were like, "Oh yeah, you've got a new subversive, different, deconstructed take of these characters. Yeah, those versions could be our main money spinners for this franchise. Yeah, like
Hmm.
that. I don't think that's compatible.
Yeah.
Snyder's Super, and obviously I've mellowed on it a lot in the last few years, but Snyder's Superman and Snyder's Batman, they're Elseworlds versions of the characters, and that's
Mm.
fine. They exist as alternate takes. It's easier to say that now because they're not the current versions, but when they were the current
Because even
versions, it
if
was just like,
like,
ugh.
because I've seen like Superman in darker storylines,
Mm,
and for example, I've watched the animated film of Dark Knight Returns,
yeah,
but even then, Superman is still in character.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like when he's in Gotham and finds Robin in the Batmobile, he still says, "Isn't this a school night, young lady?" Like that's something Superman would say.
That's Superman. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think it speaks to, and I've said this before, and it always makes me sound like an old man ranting at kids today. Um, but I think it does speak to the fact that we are in a society now that really frowns upon optimism and sincerity,
Oh
and
yeah.
it started very heavily in films in the sort of 2010s, but everything had to be
Yeah.
dark and gritty, and if you were too sincere or too light-hearted, you weren't cool, and it was goofy, and you can't be, you have to be badass and cool, bro. And
Hmm.
I say that my worldview is very different from that anyway. Me as a person, I'm an optimist, and I am more of a kind of upbeat person. So I understand that
Yeah,
that is
same
just
here, I'd say.
that's my personal viewpoint. But I just think it's a shame that sincerity and earnestness is looked down upon now, and it is something that I think, or I hope, James Gunn is going to bring back. Because
Hmm.
his
I
films
hope so
are
too. Yeah.
so earnest, like the Guardians films are so earnest and so sincere. Um, and even the Suicide Squad, which is this violent, R-rated, you know, it puts the heart of the characters and the emotions of the characters first. And that's what's so great about that film, and what's great about most of James Gunn's work, I think.
Hmm.
I love all this stuff though. That's a brilliant bit of physical comedy where she like bangs the bottle on the desk, and then he opens it and it goes everywhere. It's great. It's so well done.
Yeah.
And this early bit, because obviously this was shot quite early on in production, and you can tell from Chris just looking at Chris Reeve and just how he looks, you can tell this was quite early on. But I always think he looks a
Hmm.
lot like Brandon Routh in this early part in the Daily Planet.
Certainly does.
He's
Yeah.
really got that look to him. It's the longer hair, I think, and we'll talk about it later. But in Superman 2, obviously everyone's look in that film flip flops because
Hmm.
the scenes were shot years apart from each other. And it's a good way of keeping if you really want to be like quite nerdy about it, looking at how the characters
Hmm.
like look physically. It's a very good indication of when the scenes were shot.
Well, I think the funny thing is about these two films being shot back to back, a lot of stuff was done on Superman 2
Mm,
first mostly, and then
yeah,
they focused on the first film, but then it was decided to obviously make this one a priority
yeah,
because Donna completed like 75% of Superman 2 before being asked to wrap it up on the first film.
yeah. And if you watch the Donner cut of Superman 2, it's very noticeable in like the scenes at the Fortress of Solitude because his hair is really long. And I know
Mm,
he wore a wig as Superman, but I'm not sure if that was in this film or the sequels. Uh, but yeah, you can just tell by his hair and just his performance isn't as strong. I don't think in the Donner cut
hmm
because he's still very much trying to you know work out the character, and obviously this was his first big break. So,
Yep.
but
Well, David Prowse was the one who helped get him into shape for Superman.
that's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He was his trainer, wasn't
Hmm
he? You can't take your eyes off him though. Like it's the little details in the performance, like when like just then when he was behind Lois, you can sort of see him getting a feel for her as a person outside of his Clark
hmm
persona. Like he's not breaking character, but you can tell that that's he's just weighing her up, and as you can just tell, there's always something on his mind. And yeah, it's such a good performance. It's
hmm
subtle. It's the subtleties, and because he does the voice and the over the top, bumbling and everything, but it's the little things that really make it.
I mean, it's funny how Robert Redford, Clint Eastwood, James Caan, they were all considered for Superman.
Yeah, 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 and that would have been a very different film. So funny as well because it's clearly set in the 70s, the
Mm.
modern day times, as of 1978, but like the way he dresses looks straight out of the 30s, with
Oh,
that
yeah.
hat and everything, and just even just stuff like that, like the flourish of having the gun come out of the alley and just going, "Hey, come here," it's got old fashioned tendency, and that's something that Sam
I think that's
Raimi
what I
would
kind of
do.
like about Metropolis.
Mm.
Even the criminals are kind of have a bit of a politeness to
Yeah,
them.
they've got a kind
Compare
of
this to a city like Gotham where um,
yeah.
it is filled with crazy criminals.
Well, that's it. It's kind of speaking about the earnestness again. It's like Metropolis is so earnest as a city that even, like you say, even its criminals have an air of like class to them. And like
Hmm
comparing that with Gotham, like you say, I will say, these, especially the sequels, these films are very much like Metropolis is just New York, because
Yeah.
you got the Statue of Liberty and the Twin Towers. Um,
Well, if you're Superman 4, Metropolis is Milton Keynes.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because like in Superman 4, they say the United Nations building is in Metropolis for some reason.
Yeah, these films just decide that Metropolis is New York. And there's
Yeah.
no. We're about to get into the Otis police, tailing Otis. Now,
hmm
in the TV cut, this thing goes on for fucking ages. And it's
What, Otis being followed?
yeah, so in the TV cut, they leave the alley and it stays on that shot, and it's like the one long take. You see them getting to a taxi, and the taxi
Hmm
goes off, and you see Otis cross the road and go round the corner, and then there's just more of him just walking around the streets, and it's just like, oh my god. Remember when I watched that cut, I was just like, Jesus Christ, how much do we need of Otis just dicking about?
Doesn't he rob a blind man here?
He does, yeah.
Oh, yeah, he does. That's pretty low.
There he goes. And I'm not sure how much of this is exclusive to the expanded edition or not. I can't remember off the top of my head. But Ned Beatty's great.
Yep. I know for Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor, apparently getting him to shave his mustache was a big ask.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, well, apparently Richard Donner, like during the audition or interview, wore a fake mustache to say, okay, you shave your mustache off, I'll shave mine off.
Right.
It's only after Gene Hackman shaved his mustache off that he peeled it off and said it was fake.
That's funny. I think, yeah, I think I have heard that story. That's funny. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
to be honest, I'm surprised that Gene Hackman takes this as seriously as he does, because it's a really good
Mm-hmm.
performance. It's not Lex Luthor of the comics, but it's a unique take that I think he really gives his all, and I'm kind of
Well, I know
surprised.
he strongly stood by Richard Donner because apparently he refused to come back for reshoots for Superman 2,
Yeah,
which does explain a bit because he's quite prominent in the first act, but up until when the villains conquer the world, he doesn't appear again until he says, I suggest appearing.
yes, and if you watch the Leicester cut, there's a very obvious body and voice double for him, because they
Mhm.
fly to the Fortress of Solitude and they like drop Lex on the bit of ice, and he like he turns round so you can't see his face and does this really over the top like shaking his fist up, and you just hear, ever heard of parachutes? And it's like it's so clearly not Gene Hackman, but it's like so it is somebody doing an impression of him, and it's such an odd thing. This is cool though. Like, when was the last time you had a in a superhero film a bad guy with a secret lair? That doesn't happen
Oh
anymore.
yeah, definite.
But it's interesting, like the having it be a '70s set world, but with kind of '30s inspired architecture and fashion and stuff. That's something that like Sam Raimi would look at for the Raimi trilogy, because the first one, because
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I've often said, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy, it's practically a homage to these
they
films.
really are. They really, really are.
Yeah, first film focuses on the origin.
Hmm.
In fact, both the villains of the first respective films are businessmen of all people.
Yep.
Second film, hero loses powers. Third film, hero turns evil.
Yeah, it's a nice little homage, and I think we said when we did the commentaries for those films that
Hmm.
the first film in particular, very clearly set in 2002, but the cars look like 60s esque, and the
Definitely, yeah.
TVs look older than their era, and again, it's a similar thing for this. It's something they clearly took inspiration from, and it's cool. Again, it's just the influence of this film is so
Hmm.
powerful.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's really, you don't, not to be like they don't make them like they used to, but you really don't get films like this anymore that are
Mm.
um how do I like that are epics in a way. So like this film, the first act feels like a completely different vibe from the second
Yeah.
act, in terms of like, first half you've got all the Krypton stuff and all the stuff in Kansas, and then it completely shifts gears and we're in the city and it's very urban. You don't really
Mm.
get films like that anymore that are like
Yeah.
hugely
I mean,
expansive
I'd
and
say that's what the Salkinds were good at. They were good
mm,
at making epics,
yeah,
like
they
the
really were.
Musketeer films. The two Musketeer films, if they were one big film, that would definitely go down as an
It
epic.
really would. It really, really would. And the closest thing I can think of with that is probably the Dune films, in terms of recent,
Hmm.
because I would say like Lord of the Rings as well, but they're like 20 plus years old now. If we're talking
Yeah,
about like
definitely.
recent stuff, it's probably Dune is the one thing I can think of, because both of those films are massive and expansive and bloody long. So
could say Infinity War and Endgame are quite close to epic films,
Yeah, true.
films back to back.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'd also say Pirates of the Caribbean 2 and 3 because they were shot back to back as well.
Yeah, it was quite a common thing for a while, wasn't it? Like the Matrix sequels were shot back to back. Um, but it was rare
Yeah,
when
because
when this was shooting it like simultaneously. It was very rare to do.
hmm
I love these three though. Like they're such a fun group of villains, and
hmm And when you get to Superman 3, you get to meet their diet counterparts.
yeah, you get Billy Connolly's wife. You get
Yep.
Robert Vaughn, and you get the voice
And Richard Pryor.
and Rich Pratt, and you get the voice of Ursa from Superman 2.
Yeah. Superman? No. Thank the Lord for Superman. And yeah, the Daily Planet here, how it's all fast paced, everyone's very quippy with each other.
Mm.
That had to be an influence on the Daily Bugle in the Sam Raimi films.
Yeah, 100%. And it's very the way this is directed is there's a lot of long one takes, like lots of kind of yeah, well, long oneers really. It's the camera's always moving.
hmm
It feels like a really bustling office. It's great. It's really well done. And again, it is just that flair. Like it is just something that you could easily shoot this in a very standard way with lots of cuts and lots of kind
hmm
of different angles. But the fact that it is a quite a complicated one take thing is great. It works really well.
hmm
Also, Christopher Reeve looks really different there. Like
Yeah,
again, it's the
yeah, he
hair. He
does.
looks
That was
really
done quite
young.
early.
He looks really, really young in it.
And I think that's a well, you mentioned like the long take. I reckon that's a difference between Richard Donner and Richard Lester.
Yeah,
Lester would often keep the camera still. Donner would like to move it more.
100%. And it comes from the different backgrounds, isn't it? Because Lester, having directed, like you say, the Musketeer, he directed the Musketeer films, didn't he?
He
Yes,
did. He
yeah,
did Hard Day's Night. He did
yes,
Help.
yeah. So Hard
Yeah.
Day's Night and Help, especially, it comes from that, I think, because that
hmm
is, they're comedies primarily, and I
Yeah.
think having that coverage. Um, I mean, the thing is, I'll probably talk about it more next time we get Superman 2, but Richard Lester gets a lot of stick, and I think quite unfairly, because
Yeah. The guy is talented, I
he's
think.
very
Yeah.
talented, and ultimately, it's he invented.
Because Jack O'Halloran, who played Non,
Yeah,
said Richard Lester was as big an arsehole as the Falkines. But
doesn't surprise me.
yeah, Terence Stamp has said no one really had a bad word to say about Richard Lester. It's just we all love Richard Donner so much.
Well, that's it. And Richard Lester had a hard job as well. Like, it's not like he came in and was like, "I'm going to destroy the." Like, it's not like he had a militia. He had to
Yeah.
take over someone else's work. But the guy,
hmm
the guy invented MTV. Essentially, he invented
Yeah, he
music
did.
videos with A Hard Day's Night. Like
hmm
Hard Day's Night as a film is incredibly done.
It
It's
is, yeah.
wonderfully edited and directed, and that's all him. That's all Richard Lester, and it's a shame that he gets so much stick from fans because
Well, yeah, he directed the Beatles in their first two films.
yeah,
I mean, there was talk when they were doing the Musketeer films. There was talk of getting the Beatles to play them.
yeah, and he was a big influence on Edgar Wright as well, wasn't he? Edgar Wright's spoken about
Yeah,
it.
because it's the premiere for Scott Pilgrim versus the World, I think, where Edgar Wright says, "I'm a huge fan of Superman 3.
Yeah,
Don't jeer at me. I love evil
yeah,
Superman."
exactly. He's and you can see that in Edgar Wright's work. I think you can definitely see
Hmm.
it because it's got that kind of very how would you say it? It's got that very kind of anarchic, quite very quick, quirky style. You can see it in his work.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, I'll always kind of I'll always kind of go to bat for Richard Lester because he
Yeah.
doesn't deserve the drubbing he gets. I think
So I'd argue it was, 'cause I think Richard Lester, even though he didn't do anything on this film, I think he was kind of brought in to kind of mediate the relationships between Richard Donner and the Soul
yeah,
Kinds.
yeah, 100%.
I think it was kind of like basically the delivery guy saying, "Richard says this, the Soul Kinds say this."
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's exactly what he was. And
I think Christopher Reeve was also doing his best to try and keep the peace between
he
everyone as well.
was, yeah. And I mean that is very like brave of him to do because he's a young actor at this point.
Hmm.
He could quite easily have rubbed some people up the wrong way and been replaced. It would have been very easy for
Hmm.
him to do that. I think
Yeah, I love this guy. Goes to the phone booth. No.
yeah, that's great because that's very much like in the 70s, that was them kind of poking fun at something that was dated by then. The phone booth changing
Yeah.
thing. That'd be
Hmm.
that'd be like today. I don't know. I don't know what the equivalent to that, but that is a joke that I can see happening today. If you get my drift, like
Yeah.
making fun of something that's very crucial to the character, but is dated quite considerably, and it's funny, really, isn't it? It's funny looking at that
Hmm.
because this is now arguably dated in and of itself, yet it's
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It's a funny bit, and this reveal of the costume. I mean, this is friggin' iconic. This whole bit. I mean, what can you say about this that hasn't already been said?
Hmm.
It's wonderfully done, and we are. Let's have a look at the time code. We are an hour and 11 minutes in, and we're now seeing the big reveal. And obviously, this is the expanded edition, but even so, it's like an hour into the film, and you're
Hmm.
only just seeing the reveal, and that's brave to do, and really cool, I think. And it's brilliant. I mean, we haven't mentioned it yet, but John Williams' score. Um,
Oh, incredible! Yeah.
what can you say about
I
it?
do wonder if James Gunn is incorporating all the elements from the other Superman films. Are we going to hear that iconic music again?
Yeah, it's a tricky one because when they did it in like the theatrical Justice League, it felt very shoehorned in. But also,
Mm,
there is a point where it's like, I don't, I can't really imagine Superman without that music.
yeah.
It's as
I did like Hans Zimmer's score for when Superman is flying.
I
It
did,
really speaks of something, wondrous, mystical,
yeah,
and something not of this world, but kind of in a good way.
yeah, I liked it too. I very much enjoyed it as well. Um, I liked the sort of. I mean, it's an incredible piece of music, as a song to listen to, like on the album.
Hmm.
It's an incredible bit of music, like the piano bit at the start and everything. It's a nice kind of alternative to the John Williams theme, I think. That
Hmm.
and I love this bit. I love the fact that it's just a good chunk of this second act devoted to just Superman saving people. And so none of this is related to
Oh
the
yeah.
story. None of it is, crucial. But it is.
And he never punches a bad guy. He never
No, no.
um he's never really brutal. He's just like, hello, something wrong with the elevator? Or, don't worry, I'll get your cat from the tree.
Yeah, going down.
Hmm.
Yeah. There's one bit actually that I wish had stayed in from the TV cut. It's like when he saves the cat, he the little girl's like, "What have I told you about running away and getting into trees and stuff?" And he's like, "Well, hang on. We all make mistakes sometimes." It's like a really nice like moment with the, and I wish that had stayed in because it's not a very long bit. But obviously in this version he just says, "Well, so long now." But yeah, God, he's so good, Christopher Reeve. He's just perfect. Have you I don't know if you've seen his episode of the Muppet Show, but
I have, yeah, where he does Hamlet.
Yes, yeah. He's one of my sort of personal kind of idols. I think he's just so like, every time I see Christopher Reeve in something, it just makes me so happy. His the video of him after his accident turning up at the Oscars is that's because everyone just immediately gets up and cheers when he comes onto stage.
Yeah, because I know for me he's one of those few actors who's played a superhero where he nails both the hero and the alter ego.
Yeah, 100%.
Because with the MCU, they don't really do the secret identity thing because the superheroes in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they're practically celebrities of their time. They're practically the gods of their time, so they know every detail about them. The closest we got was Spider-Man, but that then got revealed in the second film.
Yeah, it's a damn shame, actually, talking about that. I think one of the problems with the MCU at the minute is we've lost sight of the little people. We've lost sight of the normal, everyday people that inhabit that world, because like you say, everyone knows everything about everybody at the minute in that universe, and I think it's a big shame because there's a lot of drama you can get about out of the secret identity thing, and there's a lot of charm in that, and we've completely lost it. I mean, even in like Ant-Man 3, so much of what people loved about the first two Ant-Man films were the supporting characters like Luis and the Scott's old gang, and they weren't even in the third one. And it's just like,
oh really?
Yeah.
I mean, I've not seen Ant-Man 3, but that is surprising.
Oh, it's bad. They weren't in it. Like Cassie's mum and dad weren't in it, and they were a big popular part of the first two films. Like the only returning characters from the first two are Scott, Hope, and Hank.
Wow, that is surprising.
And it's really baffling.
No Cassie whatsoever?
Oh, sorry, yeah, Cassie's in it, but she's recast, because Cassie becomes a superhero in it. Because she gets a suit.
I mean, they could have explored the concept of Scott being gone for 5 years from Cassie's life, but nah.
Yeah. I mean, that film... It's a contender for the worst MCU film, I think. It's got the Star Wars prequel syndrome where it's entirely CGI and you can tell nobody's been given much direction, because the girl who plays Cassie, Catherine Newton, she's really good in a lot of things I've seen her in. She's really charismatic, she's really funny, but she's awful in that film, and you can tell it's because she's saying lines that she doesn't know what she's meant to be looking at. And you can just see it in her face, and it's such a shame because that
Oh, this is so weird. Haven't I told you to stop telling lies?
Yeah, that's
what?
That's dated. You wouldn't see that these days. It's the sound effect as well.
Would be I think Superman would probably fly back and be like, "Let's get you somewhere safe, little girl."
Yeah. So it's that, and also the bit at the start with where the infant Clark is naked coming out of the pod. I know they actually cut that out of a lot of TV versions.
Yeah, I can see why.
Yeah, you wouldn't show that these days either. This shot coming up as he lifts the plane is, if you look very closely, it's reversed, because as he comes into frame, the S is on the wrong side. So it's one of those things that once you notice it, you can't unnotice it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just saw it there.
Yeah,
His S is the wrong way
it's the
around.
wrong way around. Also, I mean, I'm guessing this guy's dubbed over, but I love his voice. Fly. Don't look. Fly. Like, it sounds dubbed, but it's just, yeah.
Fly.
It's so dramatic. It's like Buzz Lightyear.
I mean, Airplane was 2 years after this film. I'm surprised they didn't sneak a Superman reference in there.
I'm surprised, actually, yeah.
Superman's not going to help us. Surely you can't be serious. I am serious, and don't call me Shirley.
This is one scene I really like that I do miss whenever I watch the theatrical cut. This is probably my favourite scene that's been added back in.
Definitely, yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah.
You know how it explains the importance of why he can't be Superman all the time.
Exactly.
How humanity is greedy; they would call for his help relentlessly.
Yeah, and again, it's it's back to Superman being a very human character, and this scene kind of exemplifies that for me. I really like this. This is definitely the one that I miss the most. Whenever it's my favourite scene that got added in for this cut.
I'll say this about Superman Returns: the image of him in space, hovering over Earth, closing his eyes,
trying
to listen to every problem in the world, and wondering which problem deserves my help the most. That's a great image, and it's cool to see. But then it's just undermined by the fact it cuts to him flying to the scene, but then you get the police arriving, the robbers setting up the gun in every meticulous little detail, and then Superman arriving, and then they shoot him. Like, you didn't need that.
No, not at all. It's such a it's kind of a perfect encapsulation of that film, though, isn't it? Because it's so nearly there with so many things. Like you said, that's a brilliant image of him above the earth and everything, but it just isn't. Yeah, it's just ruined a little bit.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Marlon Brando was paid over $3.5 million for this film. Christopher Reeve only got $250,000.
It's mental. It's
wow.
It's funny as well because when you get to the fourth one and he's like a producer on it and he directed a bit of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny how he just worked his way up. And
definitely.
think didn't he direct a little bit of the junkyard fight in Superman 3, or at least choreographed it?
Possibly, yeah. I think he helped choreograph the flying sequences on Superman 3.
Yes. Yeah, because by that point he was a master at the flying by that point, because he'd done it,
Oh, definitely, yeah.
And that is, the reason the flying sequences work as good as they do in this is because of him, because he moves his body in a perfect way. He's not static at all. And it's not like a CGI, double. It's the tagline was, "You'll believe a man can fly," and you do.
You do believe it.
You absolutely do. It's brilliant. It's so good.
And Superman 4's tagline is, "You won't believe a man can fly."
You'll believe that Milton Keynes looks like Metropolis.
I mean, Superman 4 really should have been called Superman 4 Rest in Peace.
It really should have been. It's so sad, that film, because it is a broken film. Like, it just doesn't work how it's intended to work.
I mean, there's debate to this day, like, what's worse, Superman 3 or 4, but I would watch 3 over 4 any day.
Yeah, same. I used to be in...
Say what you will about 3, it is a completed film.
It's a completed film, and also it's, like I said, the production is still to the same standard as the other two, and it's still got the money behind it. The flying sequences still look great. I love the Smallville subplot in Superman 3. I really love all that with Lana and stuff, and the dance I think is great.
Mm-hmm.
I return to Superman 3 quite often just for that. And as a kid, it bored me, all that stuff. But now it's like my favourite part of the film. Because I think that's kind of
I mean, I much prefer... I'm going to come out and say it. I prefer Superman 3 over Superman Returns.
I think I do too. I think I do too. Because of Christopher Reeve, evil Superman.
Oh, yeah.
Evil Superman's awesome. And it's got all the Smallville stuff. It feels like more of a cohesive film, I think. As weird as it gets, I do think it's a bit underrated.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got Larry Lamb here, famous British actor, as the journalist, and he turns up again in Superman 3 as one of the miners when he drops Gus Gorman off.
Oh, cool.
And he's the guy in Superman 3 who's like, "Sure, Superman, we got a little bitty computer." And he's there as one of the journalists, so yeah. Again, all British cast and crew. And even to this day, I don't know if this is like necessarily an influence that this film caused, much less as it is the tax breaks by filming here are responsible for this. But the amount of superhero films now that are filmed a lot of the time in the UK and use a lot of British actors, that still goes on. Mm-hmm. That's still quite a popular thing to do because, like I say, because of the tax breaks here are makes it a very viable prospect for filmmakers. But again, the Flash has a lot of British actors in it. Donna's husband from Doctor Who is in that film. It's
oh, nice.
There's a lot of British actors. Sanjeev Bhaskar is in it. It's that still happens now. The Batman, the Matt Reeves Batman, was shot a lot of it in Liverpool. So
yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm.
Oh, this whole date with Lois is so well done as well.
It's
such a great scene. Like the chemistry between the actors, they've got such great chemistry.
Mm-hmm. I think you can see Christopher Reeve's screen test of this scene, and you can see how nervous he was because he's sweating under the pits.
Yeah. I mean, the suit is perfect as well. Like, you wouldn't get this these days because there is that tendency to avoid. Everything has to be armored now, and it has to look, cool. But this is just a bit of cloth, but it looks straight out of the comic books. There's no need for like extra padding or anything. It's just a bit of cloth, but it looks perfect. There's nothing else needed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny when you get to Superman 3 and when he turns evil, the suit gets darker. But actually, the colours of the darker suit in that film are basically the same colours as a regular superhero suit nowadays. Like Henry Cavill's regular Superman costume is darker than the evil Superman suit from Superman 3.
That's true, yeah. Because I think in Man of Steel, like, the S is just red, whereas I think it's not until Batman v Superman where it's S with gold in it.
Yeah, it's like it's the S is red. It's like this white color, isn't it? It's got like a white tinge to it. And then I mean, I think that suit looks its best in Black Adam, the infamous cameo that he makes at the end of that was a fucking disaster, and I feel so sorry for Henry Cavill because the whole thing.
I don't even know what Black Adam. I don't even know what Black Adam is as a hero. Well,
he's this whole this again. It's another thing where it's like the DCEU having a mad one. This Dwayne Johnson briefly took over creative control of that universe, and Warner Brothers didn't want him to. So Black Adam is Shazam's arch nemesis, and but he didn't. So he he's Black Adam, but he was like, well, I don't want to fight Shazam because nobody knows who he is. And it's like, I'm sorry, what? You're playing Shazam's arch nemesis. People know. Yeah, whatever. So he was like, I want to fight Superman, and they were like, okay. So he managed to get Henry Cavill to come in and film a cameo that happens at the end of Black Adam, where he turns up, and they did this big thing where Henry Cavill was like, I'm back as Superman. He announced it. He put this big image out. Meanwhile, Warner Brothers are like, what the fuck have you done? This wasn't meant to happen. Like, this is all Dwayne Johnson just coming in and steamrolling this whole thing. So, of course, when James Gunn announced that he wasn't going to be moving forward with Henry Cavill, everyone lost their shit and started having a go at him. But it was Dwayne Johnson's fault, because he's the one that told he told Henry Cavill, oh, announce that you're back, you know, do this, do all this publicity, get everyone excited. And it's like, well, actually, he didn't have... It wasn't his place to do that anyway. So it's just this mad thing where they somehow let a random actor come in and take control of the whole thing. It's so... Oh, it's mental. It's absolutely... And like I said, I just felt so sorry for Henry Cavill having to do this big, I'm back and I'm so grateful to everyone, and then like a week later, I'm not actually coming back.
No, you're not. I mean, I just can't believe it. Christopher Reeve, when he played Superman, he was my age, the age that I'm at now.
Yeah, he was so
26.
Yeah, it's mental. Because he looks older, and not in a he looks old, but he just has the presence of somebody much older, and he also just the way he carries himself and the confidence with which he carries himself, it's nuts.
It's the same element, I think, actors like Chris Evans and Matt Smith have. They may look very young, but just through performances alone, you think they're so much older.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I'm 26. I could have played Superman.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I know I'm British, but that's not stopped Henry Cavill, Christian Bale, Andrew Garfield, Tom Holland, Robert Pattinson.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because there was this whole thing where it's like so many of like the big famous superheroes at the moment, because we had Henry Cavill, who was British, Robert Pattinson, British, Tom Holland, British, and everyone was like, fucking hell, and this was obviously a year ago when Henry Cavill was still somewhat Superman. It was like the current Superman, Batman, and Spider-Man are all British. It's mad. And this is brilliant and lovely and romantic and you know.
Well, I know the directors of the Disney film Aladdin said they based a whole new world on this Superman and Lois's flight.
I can see that. This you can absolutely see it. I mean, it's not a bad thing to base something on, because it is.
Oh, definitely.
It is kind of the de facto superhero romance, and it's a lovely scene. The score and everything. It's I mean, ultimately, Superman is a very romantic character. It's I think.
Oh yeah, definitely.
High Top Films on YouTube said it best. He said that Superman is a love story, and not just a love story between him and Lois, but a love story between him and humanity. And Lois is the person who represents humanity to him, and how much he loves her is how much he loves us by proxy. Like, and that's one thing I think that the Snyder films got somewhat right in terms of like equating Lois with humanity, especially in like the Snyder cut. Is, you know, she's what brings him back, because she's the kind of quintessential form of humanity and the best of us, and that aspect of the character is you've got to imagine like a Superman and Lois who are absolutely head over heels for one another. That's kind of
definitely,
and that's that's the vibe I'm getting from David Corenswet and Rachel Brosnahan. Is that how you say her name? I don't know how you say her name, but
I think that's it. Yeah, and also, I mean, this sequence is so good, they decide to copy it verbatim in bloody Superman 4.
Yeah.
Just with shit special
And
effects.
he takes her to the bloody San Francisco, the Golden Gate Bridge, and he drops it.
Oh,
But when he
yeah.
drops her in that, she keeps flying for some reason. Because Lois can fly too.
Yeah, apparently.
Just like Lacey can breathe in space.
Oh, God. I'm gonna say for that scene, I reckon it was meant to take place on Earth, but I think
Yeah.
no one got the blue screen right,
Yeah.
so they just kept it in dark and thought, oh, it's a space scene.
I mean,
Oh,
the
God.
one thing I'll say about this, and it gets away with it because it is such a like I say, romantic, very kind of earnest bit. The poem is a bit.
It's a bit much for me, but I
Yeah.
mean, it could have been worse because apparently she was supposed to sing it.
Yeah, that would have been. Although actually,
That's too
I
much.
wonder if that would have been better because it would have been a bit more like in keeping with the lyrics. Because as it is, it's like you belong in the sky. Like it's just a bit like, oh yeah, yeah. It sort of gets away with it just because you're so kind of swept up in the moment, and a lot of it as well. I spoke about him earlier, but Jeffrey Unsworth photography having that hazy look to it. You know, it doesn't look pin sharp. It looks very kind of hazy and soft, and that kind of adds to
Hmm.
the romance of it and the image of those two in the sky. It gets away with it, but it's yeah. Here I am like a kid out of school, like I just like
Holding hands with a god, I'm a
it's
fool.
real.
Like, ugh.
Like
You don't need any dialogue over this scene. It's
you really
perfect.
don't, and I almost wonder. I think it probably would have worked better actually if not Margot Kidder singing it, but like get somebody to sing the lyrics as like an original song. May have worked better,
Hmm.
but it's like this spoken word poem, and it just is a bit like every time I watch it, I just am a bit uncomfortable by it. It's just. And they, of course, they try and replicate it a little bit in Superman Returns. That
Mm.
it's and again, it doesn't quite work, but
And the thing is, if Superman was gone for 5 years in that film, and all was Kate Bosworth when she made Superman Returns?
23. No, she couldn't have been 23. Maybe she was 23. She was young anyway.
Yeah, well, I thought she was slightly younger than that, and if it was 5 years ago, that would have opened a can of worms.
Well, that's what I mean. Just the whole the whole thing of that film, like the timeline, just doesn't match up. Um, I'm just googling. She was born in '83, so yeah, she would have been
Yeah, she would have been
23
21, 22, maybe.
when they were filming it. Yeah, she would have been. Yeah. I think Oliver Harper said in that film, if you swapped Kate Bosworth with Parker Posey, and like
Mm,
have them swap roles, like I think Kate Bosworth would work better in the Miss Tessmacher role or whatever her name is in that kit,
yeah,
you know,
probably.
and Parker Posey probably
Hmm.
would have worked better as Lois, but that's really cool here. So Margot Kidd is staring at a screen there of Christopher Reeve flying off because this is all
Hmm.
one take, and then she goes and
Yeah.
meets Christopher Reeve as Clark Kent at her door, and it's this brilliant
Hmm.
illusion because it does look like he's flown round the building and got changed and is now Clark at the door. It's so well done. It's such a brilliant use of effects. And this is
Yeah, and it's 100% believable with Reeves' performance, how he goes from the charismatic, confident
yeah,
Superman to the mild-mannered, dorky Clark Kent.
absolutely. And this is I think this is the best showcase of his acting in the entire film. And I think it is
Hmm.
I think it is the best bit of him in the film when he looks she's off camera and he takes the glasses off and he straightens up, because it's like looking at a different person. It's literally, he does transform in front of our very eyes into a different human being, and it's all done through like his performance is so good.
Yeah, because I know people mock the whole glasses thing. Like, is everyone really that stupid?
Yeah.
Like, is the glasses really that cool of a disguise?
But again, that kind of
I wonder if it could work in the modern day, because they didn't really dive into it that much in the DCEU, because when Lois meets Clark at the end and says "Welcome to the planet," obviously there's that look that she knows he's Superman, but will keep it a secret.
Yeah, because that's the whole thing with that. Because so many people have an issue with the glasses thing, and again, it is this culture that we're in, of like everything has to be analysed and logic. It's that cinema sins thing, where it's like super nitpicky and everything has to be completely logical. And I'm amazed that, like, for as self-serious those Snyder films are, they kept the glasses thing. And it's kind of mad to me that, like, people, I don't know, you know, given how seriously those films take themselves. I mean,
back in the 2000s, the kids' TV show Arthur was criticizing that sort of logical analysis.
Yeah. It's the same, I think,
because there's one of the kids who's super smart who keeps pointing out the flaws of someone's story, and they're like, "Ugh, can you imagine if this guy wrote a fairy tale?"
Yeah.
Once upon a time, there were 3 little pigs. They didn't build any houses because pigs lack opposable thumbs to make houses. They lived in the woods, and no wolves ever bothered them.
Exactly. I hate that kind of unwilling to suspend any disbelief whatsoever kind of. I mean, Doctor Who has a lot of it in its fandom, and I'm always a bit like, how do you even like this show? Because if you want to be that nitpicky with Doctor Who as well, because that is, you know, so many if you want to apply logic to everything in Doctor Who, you probably won't get past the first season of, you know,
I'm still waiting
William Hartnell.
I'm still waiting for that one fan to come out unironically and say, you know, that shouldn't happen because time travel is scientifically impossible, and a section of the fandom actually taking them seriously.
Yeah.
We're not far off. You can't say that I'm wrong.
We are not far off. And I just hate all that shit. And I think it's somewhat, and obviously I'm not criticising the films for this, but I think, like, the Dark Knight trilogy is somewhat to blame for that too, because that did sort of invent this whole... And like I say, I'm not criticising those films at all, but the trend that they set, and the fact that Hollywood learned all the wrong lessons from them. Kind of started, and then, like I say, Cinema Sins, which... That's... Yeah. Cinema Sins as a YouTube channel, I think, is meant to be comedic, but people take their criticisms deadly seriously.
Yeah, true.
But, I mean, the glasses thing, I always say, look up a picture of Zooey Deschanel, then look up a picture of Zooey Deschanel in Elf, and then look up a picture of Zooey Deschanel in glasses. Those are 3 different people. Depending on what role she's in, she looks like a completely different person. Like, yeah, on each day of the week. And she's kind of the perfect example where I'm like, oh, really? Glasses can't change a person's appearance? I beg to differ. Addis Ababa. That's been a... Often in Superman stuff, that's where kryptonite is found, just because it's... because of this.
I know Superman Legacy, that James Gunn is doing, apparently says there is going to be more of a focus on Smallville.
Yeah, which I really like. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I've not seen it, but I've heard the TV series Smallville is really good.
Yeah, I've not seen it either. I have heard it's really good, though. And to be honest, I do want to watch it at some point. I know that like apparently Michael Rosenbaum as Lex Luthor is like incredible in it, and apparently he is one of the best Lex Luthors.
And Christopher Reeve apparently appears in it as the scientist.
Yes, I've seen clips of him in it. Yeah. Because I think he had Tom Welling, who plays Clark in that show. I think he had like he was so kind to him and very supportive, and like to Brandon Routh as well. He was very much like, you know. Oh, actually no, because he would have passed away by the time. Yeah, I'm making that up. Either way, he was very supportive of Tom Welling. He was like, "Why are they not making Superman films with you in them?" I think he said to him.
Ah, that's so nice to
Yeah,
say.
yeah.
I love this with the soldiers. Well, I would suggest chest massage if that doesn't work.
I know, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, so again, it's probably wouldn't.
Funnier than I remember.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't get away with that these days, but.
I mean, Lex is going about this all the wrong way. What he needed to do was imitate an old man and say, can you help me move my car, please? There you go.
Yeah.
And they get stuck to it. Our ambassadors of death.
Again, in the TV cut, this whole thing goes on for a lot longer. Like, you see every inch of their plan and, like, talking about it. And this whole excursion to Addis Ababa and, like, them in the van as well. There's this whole set piece, I think, in the TV cut where... so, like, Otis is like, I did it. And he's, you know, Lex tries to fight with him in a minute, which is hilarious. You actually see that fight in the TV cut. And there's a whole bit where, like, Otis is hanging out the back of the van. And, like, Miss Tessmacher's trying to drive it. So it goes on for quite a while. It's mad that this is the voice of Lotso Hugging Bear as well.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you want to, yeah, you say it's the voice of Lotso Hugging Bear. The voice of Lex Luthor in the animated series is the voice of Mr. Krabs from SpongeBob.
Yeah.
I mean, Mr. Krabs is Lex Luthor, let's face it.
Oh, essentially, yeah. Oh, Clancy Brown's Lex is so good, though. He's so good. It's such a good visual gag as well, cutting away from Lex and Otis fighting, and then you cut back to them and he's got a black eye. Such a good visual gag. I love that this version of Lois as well is so, like, she's a bit ditzy, and, like, she's in no way stupid, but she's so focused on what she wants to do that she's
so focused, she ends up becoming ditzy.
Exactly. It's like, it's, you know, it's that where she nearly crashes the car. it's the how many P's in rapist. Like she's so hyper focused on the point she needs to make that she just kind of forgets about everything else. I think it's a really endearing part of this version of the character.
And while I think James Gunn is the perfect person to do a Superman movie, I personally would have liked to have seen Brad Bird do a Superman film. I think he would have been a great choice.
I think that would have been really great. I mean, he basically did with the Iron Giant.
Yeah, that is a Superman film.
Basically a Superman film. To be honest, even the first Shazam, I think, is very close to like the tone of a good Superman film in terms of how, like I say, very earnest it is and very kind of optimistic it is and happy. That's kind of a similar tone. I really like Jackie Cooper as Perry White too. This whole Daily Planet crew, I think, with Mark McClure and Jackie Cooper, they're really endearing characters. And I like. I think a big reason I've grown quite fond of Superman 3 over the years is it is just the only one that's like a standalone adventure. That.
Yeah, true. There's it doesn't set up a sequel. There's not really much references to what came before. It's just like a day in the life of Superman.
Yeah, it's like a James Bond film, really. It's a standalone
and
thing.
Richard Pryor.
And Richard Pryor. But like the stuff with, them getting a bingo machine and stuff and just them interacting, it's really good fun. And, Clark and Jimmy going out together and Jimmy annoying the shit out of Clark on the bus. It's stuff like that.
I mean, the funny thing about Superman 3 is not that he's sat in a bar drunk, it's the fact that barely anyone around him reacts.
Yeah, I know.
They're just like, meh.
I mean, that says a lot about the tone of these films and how kind of... How...
Yeah, Superman's evil now, but well.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, what's the worst thing this Superman would do when he's evil? He'd get pissed, blow out the Olympic flame and flick peanuts at a mirror.
And move the Leaning Tower of Pisa.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas, what would Henry Cavill Superman do if he was evil? Probably destroy the fucking world. And that speaks a lot to...
He'd rip Batman's heart out, apparently.
Yeah. I also like the thing, it's a very cool idea of having Lex essentially use a frequency only heard by dogs and Superman to get his attention. I think that's quite cool.
That's what I love about his Superman. He's always concerned about the people.
Yeah, stand back now, stand back, nothing to get worried about. Like, it's... That's who Superman is.
And it's in the second film, he's like, don't do it, the people!
Yeah. Like, that's who Superman is. Just, like, have him, like, be reassuring to those people. It's just like, it's okay, it's fine. Yeah, it's so good. And that's... I mean, Lex just said it there, look at that overgrown Boy Scout. That's who he is, really. But,
yeah, he is a Boy Scout.
He's an overgrown Boy Scout, and that's why he's so great. And I love this bit as well. So this obviously is all been added in for the extended cut. And yes, it's a bit pointless because Lex knows that Superman's indestructible, so the bullets won't work. However, visually, all this is great with the fire and the ice and stuff. This is fun. I quite like this. Yes, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, like those ricochet effects are really good.
They really are. It's funny as well because the what they're watching it on is so low quality. Like every time it cuts back, it's all faded and the colours are all off. But some of this footage was reused in Superman 2, wasn't it?
I think so.
When he's like turning human, there's like flashes of him walking through the fire. And it's like, I mean, it's great for them because it's like, oh, this is a shot we've not used before because we cut it. Let's reuse it. let's repurpose it for something else. It's great.
Now, this would have been the highest grossing film of 1978, but it was bet by another film. It was bet by Grease, of all things.
Wow, okay. I can kind of believe that, actually.
I mean, last year we had Barbenheimer. In 1978, was it Grease Man? Or Super Grease?
Super Grease. Grease Man. Grease Man's the best. Grease Man.
Well, I know last year we had Oppenheimer and Barbie come out. We called it Barbenheimer. And apparently there were people who were trying to recreate that with Saw X and Paw Patrol the movie, calling it Saw Patrol.
Yeah, the thing with Barbenheimer is it was a natural thing created by the internet that was just this lovely little cultural moment. The problem is, after that, studios started to try and create their own versions, and it didn't work. So you had Saw Patrol. There was another one as well that a studio tried to do, and it's just like, no. The fun of Barbenheimer was that it was a impromptu, like, moment that everyone got involved with. Let's not try and manufacture it again. I mean, to be honest, Barbenheimer was just great because it's like, wow, after the pandemic, movies can still pull in big crowds.
Yeah, movies can be events still.
And it really was. Me and my friends travelled up to Cardiff to see Oppenheimer in IMAX, and then Barbie followed it, and it was a great event that we did, and on a Saturday. Yeah, it was great, and seeing people dressed up. I mean, you knew what in Oppenheimer. This group walked in bright pink, and it was like, okay, they're doing the double bill. It was brilliant.
I love that look that Superman gave Otis when Lex says, "Take the man's cape." Yeah. He may be a friendly superhero, but he will be threatening and serious when he needs to be.
Exactly. I don't think he wants me to, Mr. Luthor. He's so good.
Now, I didn't get into Superman until 2013 when I first saw Man of Steel on DVD, but it wasn't until years later where I realised I did watch an element of Superman when I was a kid. I used to watch the Crypto the Superdog TV series on CBBC.
Oh, wow. Oh, very cool.
I just didn't realise it was connected to Superman.
Yeah. Oh, that's very cool. I had my friend, I think I was like 6 or something, and it was my birthday, and my friend got me the box set of Superman 1 to 4 on DVD. So this would have been 2008, 2007, 2006 maybe.
Nice.
I was very young. And and I only ever watched the first 2 as a real young kid, and then I watched 3 and 4 when I was like 11 and 12. But yeah, it's. I remember that it was one of those kind of budget sets that was like 4 great films, 1 great price, and the copy of Superman that was in there, the first one was one of those flipper discs. Where it was like on the one side was the film, and then you'd have to flip it over, and that's where you get the special features. And it was like a really early DVD. And then I didn't see the Donner cut until I was like 12, 13.
Yeah, I was in 2015 I bought the Blu-ray box set, which it's a must-own for any Superman fans.
Really
it's got both cuts of Superman the movie, both cuts of Superman 2, 3, 4, Returns, and just has a crap ton of special features.
Yeah. It's one of those...
It's even got the Fleischer cartoons on there, which I still haven't actually watched.
No, I've not watched all of them. I've watched a few. It's that box set is from the era where Blu-ray was still somewhat new, and studios were really putting a lot of effort into their Blu-ray box sets.
They've even got Superman and the Mole Men on there,
Yeah,
starring George Reeves. They've got The Adventures of Super Pup,
I
I
think
think,
so.
the TV
The pilot that
pilot.
was never picked
And
up. Yeah,
also, they've even got some Looney Tunes cartoons that have Superman references in them.
it's such a comprehensive set. The only thing that's comparable to it, I think, is the Alien box set. Um,
Mm,
and it's such a shame. It's such a big shame that, like, obviously because physical media isn't as popular now, these the 4K sets that they're doing, the films have never looked better than ever, but the content, the packaging, the special features, they're not as good now because studios aren't putting in the effort to do it right like they were in those early days of Blu-ray.
hmm I'll say this about one of the Looney Tunes cartoons they've put on there. It's about Bugs Bunny becoming Super Rabbit,
Oh yeah.
and at the end, he inexplicably, just I think out of nowhere, gets changed into a soldier's uniform, starts singing an army song, and says to the villains who are chasing him, "Sorry, fellas, I can't play with you anymore. I got more important stuff to do." And then he marches off to a sign that says "to Germany and to
Oh
Japan."
my god. Oh god.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like,
But to be fair, it was quite relevant at the time because when World War II broke out, Superman actually became a bit less relevant than he did
yeah.
because people were like, we don't need capes, we need to just get out there and stop fascism.
It's funny. It's like these. It's like the um Disney cartoons from around that time where it was like, I don't know if you've seen the one where it's like Donald Duck joins the Nazis.
Mm.
And it's
Yeah,
yeah,
there was also two films called Saludos Amigos and The Three
yeah,
Caballeros, it was made as part of the Good Neighbor policy, basically to say to South America, please don't join the Nazis.
yeah. It's a mad era in it of history.
Yeah. I mentioned Crypto the Superdog earlier. James Gunn has hinted he could be in Superman Legacy.
I would love that. I mean, we've already had Cosmo
Yeah.
the space dog in Guardians of the Galaxy. Why
Yeah.
why not? Why not?
I mean, I just find it hilarious that Jor-El saved his son and his dog. He didn't think to save
Yeah,
anyone else. The dog gets top priority over any other citizens of Krypton.
and it was the dog gets priority. And then his cousin gets sent off, and they're like, "What the fuck in now, man? Why couldn't you have sent her off as well?"
hmm
Like, oh, I love that bit from Gene Hackman where he looks at his watch and just shakes his head. There's
hmm
no need to say anything. You just absolutely get the kind of person he is from that. It's so good.
hmm I mean, I can't say Miss Teschmacher
Yeah.
without the way Lex says it. Miss
Just like
Teschmacher!
that. I mean, this I know. Speaking of Blu-ray stuff, this director's cut, the expanded edition Blu-ray was I think it was one of the very first Blu-rays that ever came out, from what I can remember. It's like 2006 is the date on the disc, so it's early in the
hmm
realm of Blu-ray.
Well, yeah, because I reckon they would have done Superman 1 and 2 on Blu-ray, probably to coincide with the release of Superman
Yeah, they
Returns.
did. I mean, well, the Donna cut got the Blu-ray at the same time as this, but it wasn't until
Mm.
2011 that the theatrical cut got a Blu-ray. This is the
Okay.
thing with like, so Warner Brothers, the Batman films, all of them, all four of those original films, always get released at the same time. They got released on Blu-ray all at the same time. They made their debut on Blu-ray. On 4K, it was the same deal. All of the 4Ks came out at the same time. On DVD, same thing. But with Superman, it's always, we're going to put the money into the first one. No one cares about the sequels. We'll just put them out years down the line in a box set. And it's just like, it's such a shame.
Even so, like, because like whenever I walk into HMV, the only Superman film apart from like Man of Steel that I see on Blu-ray that's on its own is Superman the movie.
Yeah,
like it's like Superman the movie and then bugger the sequel.
They seem averse to like making the sequel, and they've done it now. Like the sequels have got like individual 4K releases, but again, it took a while. Like it didn't, and they did the first one on 4K. It then took 5 years for them to do the rest of them, and it's just like, well, if you can do it for Batman, why not Superman? And it happens all the time.
I mean, even so for Batman, I always see Batman and Batman Returns on Blu-ray on their own, but never Batman Forever or Batman.
And if anything, the Batman films make more sense to do separately. Because the Superman films, they have the same aesthetic across all four of them. But the Batman films change completely from 2 to 3. So it's I don't know. I never know how I feel about that moment either, where she kisses him and he's like, stay back now. He just doesn't know what to say. Like, yeah.
I mean, we are about to come to the infamous time traveling around the world.
Yeah, which again, it's.
I've never been a fan.
I've never been a fan. I've never been a fan, but more because none of the sequels never bothered to address it. Because you sort of get the sense at the end of this that, yes, he's done it, but the fact that he's done it is going to have massive consequences because he shouldn't do it. But the sequels never pick up on that.
Also, I mean, to be fair, there are powers in these films that never appear again, like the mind erasing kiss in Superman 2, the cellophane S. That he throws at Non that just disappears like as soon as it's in contact.
Yeah, definitely. And even if you're going by the Donner cut, okay, the Donner cut picks up on that thread of him chucking the missiles into space and stuff, but then it fucks that up at the end by having him reverse time again. And I know it was what they were forced to do, but that is the kind of thing that's the thing that sinks that version of the film for me. Is because I just think it kind of ruins it. And I know that they had to do it, but we'll talk more about that next time because I have a lot of thoughts and feelings on both versions of Superman 2.
So I take it if he was supposed to throw the missile away here, and obviously it was meant to release Zod and the others, was the first film supposed to just end there? Like, was there no Lois death?
I don't think so. I think originally in the script it was going to be where he was going to save everyone, and then the tag at the end was going to be the missile goes into space, the villains are free, and then it's like, to be continued next year in Superman 2. But obviously they shifted resources to this film. They had to move the reversing time ending to this one just so it had an ending, and then they were gonna think of a new ending for Superman 2 when they got there. But obviously that never happened because Richard Donner got replaced, which is why the Donner cut of Superman 2 has to reuse that ending. I always think when he flies into the Earth's core here, he looks a lot like George Reeves' Superman. Like, the costume looks very kind of old school.
Oh god, didn't the Flash use George Reeves as well?
Yes, so the Flash used CGI versions of Christopher Reeve, George Reeves, Adam West, Nicolas Cage as Superman, which is bollocks because Nicolas Cage is still alive. Just get him in the suit and film him.
I know.
And Helen Slater as Supergirl as well. Again, it's bollocks. She's still alive. Didn't need to. Yeah.
I think YouTuber Joe Brennan put it best because he made a video with the thumbnail literally saying, "Stop showing me dead people."
The thing, and as well, it's like, Christopher Reeve, after his accident, it was his dream to be able to walk again and fly again on screen and do all that. And the fact that, like, you bring him back as Superman, and all you have him do is stare blankly into the sky. Like, so much of Christopher Reeve's performance is based on emotion and his emotion as Superman, and it is just this awful, and Nicolas Cage was apparently like, they did bring him in on set and he filmed stuff for it, and then when he saw the film and he was like, well, that's not me, that's just a digital double of me that they've created. And the CGI throughout the Flash is awful. Like, it's shockingly bad for a film that's that expensive. Because a big part of that film is that it's two versions of Barry Allen, and like they're the leads. So obviously a lot of that requires that there's two Ezra Millers on screen, and the effect of having,
I don't think the world needs two Ezra
Millers.
The world
doesn't need two Ezra Millers, no. But the effect of having two versions of the same actor on screen was done better in Back to the Future Part 2 in 1989. Like, it looks, so instead of just using like a split screen method, or any of the effects that people pioneered over the last 30 years, what they do is they sometimes use that, but a lot of the time one Ezra Miller is completely CGI, and it looks dreadful. It's like Polar Express. And a lot of the time it's like it's the Ezra Miller that's talking and is getting a close-up, and it's just like, why the fuck is that the one that you decided to make the CGI character of? Like, the one that's like up in front of the camera. It's really odd. And then you like say all the digital doubles are weird. I mean, the Adam West one, you never see close up, you just see a distance, so they sort of get away with that one. But
I mean, it baffles me with DC. They chose to release the Flash, but not Batgirl.
Oh, that's disgraceful. Like, the whole... So, the Batgirl thing... It's not just the Batgirl thing now, though, because they cancelled the second Scoob film. The sequel to
yeah, I heard
Scoob,
about that, yeah.
When it was... And the heartbreaking thing about that is, they had to go and finish the film. It wasn't finished. And they were like, oh, so it's cancelled, so we're out of a job then. They were like, no, you can finish the film, you have to finish it, it's just never getting released. So all these people were doing work that they knew would never get to see the light of day. It's so gross. And they've done it now again with Coyote versus Acme, and it's just like, I hate the fact that we live in a world where art is considered disposable and could just be deleted. And like all the
yeah, utterly horrible.
It really is, and all the hours that everyone who worked on those films put in, and they're never going to be seen. And
I mean, I thought we were past the days, burning our media and art from like the 60s, but apparently not.
Well, Willow got a big sequel TV series. The classic fantasy film Willow. The big Disney Plus original they put a lot of money into. It was on Disney Plus for about 6 months, and then they deleted all the episodes off there because they didn't see it as profitable, and you can't see that anywhere now. They never released it physically, they never released it digitally to purchase. The Willow TV series is gone, and that is insane. Like, the whole TV series can just be gone like that. Oh, there's the great bit that's in the TV cut there. Again, it's one of the ones I wish they kept in, where he saves Jimmy Olsen, and he's like, "Oh, go ahead, take a shot of it," and he helps him take a photo of the dam bursting for the paper, while he's carrying him.
It's a great model effect. The dam
It really
bursting.
is. I think the model falls down a bit when it gets to the city, the little town. There, I think you can tell it's a model, but the actual dam bursting looks great. It looks really, really good. And again, I don't think you'd get a superhero film that would come out today that would have no big superpowered villain, just have earthquakes, Superman, the big climax of the film, for all intents and purposes, yes, Lex Luthor's the villain, but the big climax is Superman running around saving people. And I don't think you get that today. I think there would have to be some sort of villain that you'd have to have a physical confrontation with. Because Lex Luthor isn't that, he's the mastermind behind this all, but there's no big bust up with him. And that's unique. That's very unique. I mean, I think Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 kind of came close to it in a way, because the big climax of that film was about getting people to safety. But even so, there still had to be that physical confrontation with the High Evolutionary. So it's, yeah. Margot Kidder told the story of showing her kid this film, thinking, "Oh, he'll be alright to watch this," forgetting that she dies quite horribly here, and apparently he was like traumatized because it's like he just watched his mum get crushed and suffocate in a car. He plays it so well, though, like the happiness on his face that he's done a good job there, and then the realization that, oh shit, Lois. It's very well done.
I mean, the DCEU, I'm surprised he's not rolling his eyes to save Lois.
Probably.
Yeah, I've got to love how quote-unquote smart Lois is in the DCEU. This kryptonite's going to hurt Superman. I'll throw it in this bottomless pit of water.
So dumb.
Lex Luthor, I've created the ultimate Kryptonian monster. Gee, thanks.
Oh, everyone points out as well that you can very clearly see Christopher Reeve's fillings in his teeth. So it's like, Man of Steel.
Superman's not perfect. No. He's bound to have not the best of teeth.
It's the bit I love in the animated series where it's like, how does Superman shave? He uses the mirror and his laser vision.
Oh, that's pretty horrible for a family film.
It really is.
Basically choked in like gravel and mud and dirt, like horrible.
You can see why Margot Kidder's son was so traumatized by it, or daughter, I think it was.
So horrible.
He does it so, like, the way he kind of puts her down, but like makes sure to hold her head so she doesn't fall down. Like, he very carefully places her down. It's so well done. And I also...
Yeah, and I love the scream he gives. It's like something that's out of this world.
Great. It's so good. It's the sound design as well, because it's so silent. You know, when she
It
does
is.
die.
There's no music. It's all just in the performances, and it's
Yeah, it
brilliant.
is fantastic. That's probably the worst looking shot in the film, though, when he goes up to the clouds.
Yeah.
It's so... Yeah, the grain is so heavy.
Yeah, it's pretty dodgy.
But like this, probably would have been so much more powerful had the sequels past two bothered to kind of explore the consequences of this.
Yeah.
Because there's always talk about it in these films. It's like, you know, can't do this. It's forbidden. It's forbidden. You never see why it's forbidden. You never see like why he can't do it. Like it's that is a weakness with these films.
And the thing is, if he is time traveling and putting the Earth backwards, surely wouldn't he? Surely there's now two Supermen.
Yeah,
two Supermen.
It doesn't really work. It's one of those things where it's like, you can. Yeah.
I mean, I watched the Doctor Who series 3 finale recently, and they do that thing of Superman where they reverse time, don't they? They reverse everything. But I also realised this: if you weren't like the people on the Valiant Bridge, they're the only ones who remember because it's the eye of the storm. But let's say when the attack happened, you were on Earth, and then at the end of that year, you were in the Valley on the Valiant. There'd be two of you.
Yeah, that's true. I hadn't even thought of that. Yeah, shit.
I suppose because I mean, obviously, their plans are put because in the clouds he says it's forbidden for you to interfere with human history.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the way of Superman saying, no, I'm not going to listen to my father anymore. And maybe with Superman 2, it's more focusing on the relationship with his mother.
Yeah, that's what I... Yeah. That's what I would just... Yeah, that seems to be the intention. That is a good way of looking at it, actually, yeah.
It's the in-universe explanation as to why Marlon Brando is a theatrical cut. Obviously, we know the real explanation.
They couldn't pay him enough.
Yep.
Even just like when he flies off, he does that little thing where he crouches and then boosts himself up. There's just a physicality to it that is missing in a lot of flying sequences today.
Yeah, because not to diss him too much, but Brandon Routh, he looked so stiff and awkward in like the flying sequences.
And it's a shame because he was replaced with CGI for a lot of them, and it sucks because there's
true.
like footage of him doing the wire work and practicing the takeoffs and landings and stuff, but hardly any of it's used. And when they do use it, it's shot in a way that you don't see it properly. Like it's shot really close up, for example. And it's just like it's such a waste of all that training. This is a very kind of cheesy comic booky ending, and I think it works really well. This country is safe again, Superman, thanks to you. Like, it's very, you know... I love the big reveal, him taking off his wig, and, like, Otis looks shocked, and it's like, what? You found one of his wigs earlier.
I remember in Superman Returns when Lois is on Lex's ship, there's that weird quick cut to like a load of wigs and dramatic music, and I'm like, they're wigs.
Yeah, that's it. And there's that, and her son's like, you're bald. That's it.
Now this shot, what I like about each of these films that it ends with Superman flying over Earth and nodding at the camera. which is completely cheesy, but I love. But did they just reuse the footage for each of the
They did,
sequels?
because you get to Superman 4 where he looks completely different, because obviously it's like 10 years later, and then it cuts to this at the end, and it's
Fair.
like, wow, he's suddenly de-aged, bulked up, and the special effects have just jumped a
Mm,
leap, you know. But
yep.
that, you know, smiles to the camera at the end. It's one of those things, I've said it before, that obviously you want to do different things for different adaptations, and that's fine, that works great. But that's one of those things where I think it should just be a standard for every Superman thing, is to have that end the film. Because it is just a perfect encapsulation of the character. And obviously they recreate it with Brandon Routh. And I just think it works brilliantly. Like, it's just the
Hmm.
perfect capper to a Superman film. And I
Hmm.
would love, you know, obviously I would understand if they didn't, but it'd be absolutely brilliant if they did that with David Corenswet. Um,
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, that he at the end of the film he smiles and looks at the
yeah,
camera, not as a complete homage to the Reeve films, but just to say, "I'm Superman, baby."
exactly. I don't quite know where he's buggering off to though. I've just thought now, where's he
Yeah.
going? He's just gone up into space, and
Well, I like to think at the end of, I'll just say this, at the end of the first three films, he'll go up over Earth, see that everything's okay, go back down. But with Superman 4, he was like, "What's that over there?"
yeah,
And left for 5 years.
it's a bit of Krypton.
Superman returns.
Because I don't know, because that's the thing about Returns. It's like, oh, John Glenn, second unit director there, directed the bulk of
Oh
the
yeah.
80s Bond films. Um,
Hmm.
that's the thing about Superman Returns. It's like, yeah, he was off for 5 years, and it's implied that that's just the time it takes to get there. But it's like, he's
Mm.
Superman. Should it really take 5 years
Yeah,
for him to fly
exactly.
to even? I don't know. I know it's like time differentials with space and stuff. But I don't know. Maybe it was like 2 minutes for him, but 5 years for the world. But that's not that's not what's implied. It is implied it's been 5 years for him as well. Like, I don't know. I love, by the way, with these Superman films, I love the elaborate end titles, because
Hmm.
they've got a lot of personality to them. Like, I really like in Superman 3. There's this, and it happens in Supergirl actually. You've got the credits kind of scrolling towards you, almost like a Star Wars crawl,
Hmm.
but it's like coming at you. And it would have been a
Yeah.
very complicated effect to do for something that people aren't going to look at. Really, most people are going to leave the cinema when this is happening. But yeah,
Yeah, the score by John Williams, if you like, if you go on the YouTube video of the theme, usually you see comments that say "All Rise for the DC national
yeah,
anthem," and yeah, I can easily have this as the DC's main theme.
it's a perfect main theme, and it's transcended these films as well. Because I think anyone you say Superman, they're like, oh yeah, Superman, da, 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 da. Like it's just, yeah, it's just sums that character up, and it's, as a kid I knew of that music and that theme before I watched these films, because it just transcends these films, I think, which is great. You know, it's a cool, and it's the same
Hmm.
thing with Spider Man. Like, it's something, that song transcends Spider-Man, the 60s show, and it just becomes iconic in and of itself. um but yeah, it's interesting seeing a lot of these credits being, like I said earlier, recognizable names from other British made productions at the time, like the Bond films. We saw John Glenn there. Tom Mankiewicz obviously wrote, was it Man with the Golden Gun and Live and Let Die, he wrote?
He he did, yeah, and he stood by Richard Donner, basically saying,
Did, yeah.
"Well, if he's out, then I'm out
Yeah,
too."
and Tom Mankiewicz, you know.
Oh, Stuart Fell.
Oh yeah,
Stuart
Stuart
Fell was
Fell,
doing stunt
wow,
work on this one.
that's
Nice.
very cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Let's see, there you go again. More great British talent.
Maybe he was taking a break from doing falls as a
Yeah,
Sontaran in a swimming pool
yeah. Because I was about to say it's 78, so it would have been season 15 time.
round about
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
time.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, Actually, speaking of the score, I found on vinyl record a copy of it from like 1978 in a independent record store a while ago for about a tenner, and it's very cool. And I opened it up, and it's got like newspaper cutouts from adverts and reviews for Superman the movie from the time, which is very cool. But yeah, so that was Superman the movie, the expanded edition, and I think, you know, everything we've spoken about in this commentary holds true. It is the godfather of superhero films. It's so influential, it's so massive, and it still holds up. It's still, to my mind, the best Superman film ever made, and it's never been beaten for me.
Yeah, you may, you know, all those fans out there who are fans of the MCU, the DCEU, Christopher Nolan's Batman films, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, you can all pretty much trace all their origins back to this.
It all comes back to this.
Without this film, none of those films would exist.
And like I say, the fact that it's still influencing things today, and it's Christopher Reeve's performance is still, you know, the gold standard. It says it all. Its legacy speaks for itself, and it's not a perfect film by any means, but it is so good still, and it absolutely belongs in the pantheon of iconic superhero films. But what are we doing next time?
Next time we will be doing Superman 2, the theatrical cut. So do look forward to that, and don't forget to kneel before dawn.
Yes, come to me, son of Jor-El. That's been an interesting one.
Superman.
Who is this? Superman. I've got a lot to say about that film, and its different versions. And for the purposes of this, we are just going to be doing the theatrical cut, but I think the talking points are going to pretty much remain the same, whichever version we were going to do anyway. So yeah, look forward to Superman 2 next time. In the meantime, follow us on social medias, on Instagram and YouTube. You subscribe to my channel and subscribe to Isaac's channel, because there's great content on there. And I think that's all there is to say. Take care now. Bye bye.